Hey, what's up, y'all? Thank you for tuning in. In this video, we're going to talk about the juvenile criminal justice system in the United States. We'll draw a comparison between the juvenile criminal justice system and the adult criminal justice system. We'll talk about the U.S. Constitution, recidivism, and policing for profit being kind of at the center of the juvenile justice system, especially whereby juvenile offenders are basically institutionalized, and this is where most of our criminal justice problems stem from. In terms of recidivism, most criminal offenders are repeat offenders. Many of which, and this depends again where you're getting the data, but start out as juvenile offenders. All right, so up until about 1974, juveniles accused of committing criminal offenses were treated the same or similar as adults, depending on which jurisdiction. And the purpose of the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act of 1974 was to establish uniformity in response to juvenile justice, and also to show juveniles leniency, or more leniency than adults, and to kind of correct behavior early on, so juveniles are not repeat offenders. That was the entire concept of establishing juvenile criminal justice courts. All right. However, what the juvenile criminal justice courts became was the complete opposite of what was the concept behind juvenile justice. The reason being is that juvenile criminal justice courts are actually a civil module. All right, so the nomenclature as such pertains in court was changed around in respect to juvenile justice. Thus, juveniles are not afforded the same constitutional rights, for example, right to a trial by jury, right, as adults. And the reason being is that a jury made up of adults is going to be more sympathetic to juvenile offenders, in my opinion. Okay, so they left the duty of what would have been the jury to the prosecutor and the judge in a juvenile justice court. And there's exceptions. I think the state of Kansas is one of those states that ruled in their state court that that's unconstitutional. So they do provide certain constitutional rights that juvenile criminal offenders didn't have before, as of 2008. The point being is that in most states in the United States of America, the juvenile offenders who technically can't be offenders. We're going to get into the nomenclature, but the point is juvenile criminal offenders don't have the same constitutional rights as adults in a criminal proceeding, when the U.S. Constitution states that in all criminal proceedings, the accused, it doesn't say in some criminal proceedings, it says in all. So they changed the nomenclature of the courts to make the juvenile courts a civil module. You get it? That's why juveniles can't commit crimes as per nomenclature. They commit juvenile delinquent acts, and they're charged with criminal offenses that otherwise would have been crimes had the juvenile been an adult during the commission of such offenses. But nevertheless, you're holding them accountable for criminal offenses. You're just changing the verbiage around to what? To gain an advantage, for the courts to have that advantage, which they say is in favor of the juvenile. So remember, these courts they're more intelligent, they're professionals, they're experts, they know what's best for you. I'm not saying there isn't bad parenting out there, but most of this is all a result of the juvenile justice system. Okay? So, because they set up the juvenile criminal justice courts as a civil module, they changed the nomenclature around. Juveniles no longer have the right to jury, right to bail, for example. And that established an entire code of its own, depending on what jurisdiction you're in, that left it up to the states to write their own juvenile code. Like in California, you have the penal code, which deals with criminal offenses on a state level, and then you have like the welfare institutions code or something, and that deals more with minors. All right. So because they've set up the juvenile justice courts as a civil module, obtaining juvenile records is more difficult from a investigative journalist perspective, right? So they're segregating, they're compartmentalizing. That information is now compartmented. Not anybody can get that information and bring that to the public. So nobody cares. You don't even know what's going on in the juvenile justice system, but that's what's happening. All right, you ain't got to tell me about it. So the point being is that it made the court procedure more automated. All right, because juveniles don't have the same rights. It's a civil court where juveniles are held responsible for what would have been criminal offenses, but because the juvenile criminal justice courts are a civil module, juveniles aren't charged with criminal offenses because juveniles can't commit criminal offenses. They commit delinquent acts. All right, so this is another example of policing for profit, because all this does is expedites the system. Juveniles are institutionalized. They're adjudicated the ward of the state, okay, early on. That damages their record when they're adults. And furthermore, this is something that comes up in the NCIC, in the National, Crime Index Center or Criminal. The NCIC is the federal database that police use to look people up, right? To run a check on a person's identity, driver's license, vehicle registration, all that. So this is something that's accessible, and actually this is used to make an inference about you as an adult. If you ever have a run-in with law enforcement or whatever, and they look at your criminal history, they're going to go back and look at your juvenile history, and they're going to, just by default, the nature of people and how people are very judgmental, they're going to base an inference or an opinion as to your character currently based on whatever they get back from the DOJ. All right, but remember, juveniles can't commit criminal offenses according to the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act of 1974. You see what I'm saying? So this is all nomenclature. This is why the justice system is broken, and this is why you have such high rates of recidivism. You have repeated criminal offenders as adults because they started out in the juvenile justice system. That's what happened. Okay? They're from a single to no parent household as a result of the phony war on drugs, because we know who's been trafficking the cocaine from Latin America into the United States and selectively targeting minority communities. Okay, so the family unit's gone, right? They've broken up the family unit, all right? Selectively targeting minorities. And then furthermore, created a system to where you don't even know about these people. They're segregated as it is. Now you segregated them more. Good luck obtaining somebody's juvenile records unless you're law enforcement. But is law enforcement going to fight against the system that pays them their salary? No. Nope. Absolutely not. They won't be getting promoted if you do. So that's what we're getting at here. any time that you have this is unconstitutional, but you can't challenge this because juvenile courts are going to say they have the jurisdiction over all matters that deal with juvenile offenses, even though it's unconstitutional. This has been ruled at a federal level, again, 1803, Marbury versus Madison. Any law repugnant to the Constitution or federal law is null and void. Okay? Because the Constitution has what's known as Article 6 within the Constitution, which establishes the Supremacy Clause, which says that anytime there's a conflict between local, state laws and federal law supersedes. When something is a right, when something's your right, that's not up for debate. Okay? Like, I don't care who you are, I don't care if you went to Yale, Harvard University, or you've been practicing law, you're a whatever judge. Doesn't matter. That's not up. Human rights are not up for debate. You don't get to selectively interpret based on the circumstances and your preference what is or isn't the law. So when something is a federal law, all right, and then everybody says that they follow the federal law, right? They do, right? Everybody, all the Constitution of the United States was ratified in all states, correct? Without entertaining conspiracy theories, right? All the states that have a state constitution drafted their constitution or modeled their state's law based on the supreme law of the land. All right, so anytime that there's a conflict between state and federal law supersedes. That's not up for debate. We don't need judicial review. I don't know where these people get this idea that they're above the law at a local and state level. You ain't above the law. All right, so federal law supersedes, okay, in all matters, where in all criminal matters. You can't take something and start picking words apart and be like, well, that's not what that means. Criminal matters. What they really meant was, and then they get into this argument of letter of the law, spirit of the law. No, the Constitution says in all criminal matters. It doesn't say in all criminal matters as such pertains to adults or juveniles. All right. So when you set up a juvenile criminal justice court system, that's a civil court and not a criminal court, and then you don't grant or guarantee some of the rights that you should as per the Constitution because you changed the nomenclature, you're outright wrong. And then this brings us back to policing for profit. Why is the public paying money for these people to wage asymmetric warfare on our communities? Why? I don't get it. I don't understand. And this is all a matter of intelligence. All you have to do is question these people. They get real quiet when you ask them all the right questions and you speak on level ground using the same rhetoric and terms they do. See, that's why they've completely destroyed and gutted the education system. You can't even talk to these people because most people don't have the vocabulary, and I understand because I was one of those people, but I'm self-taught. I'm a self-taught intellectual. I'm not going to let these people run me over and bully me, man. You have to stand up to all of them. And then the way that they're doing to our communities, minority communities especially, you know what? People need to go there and ask some questions. Peacefully. That's it. You need to just study, know the law, be learned in the law, be self-educated, understand what all this means, and ask questions. And if you don't know what to say, it's okay. Just ask, bring a pen and a notepad and ask your leadership in your community, whoever it is, ask them questions. And don't stop there. Go everywhere. Ask them questions, write everything down. That's what they don't want. They want to take the path of least resistance in earning their salary, where they're racking up all this overtime, all this money. Municipalities are going broke. The mayor's committing municipal bond fraud. So's the governor and all these other head honchos. And then the system and the people are used as like collateral. Like they're trading people in our system like you trade stocks on the stock market. That's what they're doing, beginning with children. They're trafficking your kids using the juvenile criminal justice system. These are straight up thugs. And you don't have to you know what? What it is they don't want us to realize the power of community. If everybody, this is your problem. I don't care if you're of a different, category or what is it, stereotype. Let our differences bring us together. These people, and then we go to where the leadership is, and we ask questions, and we tell them, you are not going to bully us. We're not going to pay any of your fees, anything that you want from us. We're just going to stop paying everything. Your municipalities are going to go under because you need the people more than we need you. They've made it like government or public office is something like these people are like masters, like they own us, and then everybody has to like pander to them, like everybody, like we should be grateful we have these great leaders that are destroying our communities. We don't. So I encourage everybody to get learned. I went back to school. I was a school dropout. I went back, got my GED. I went through a series of law enforcement academies, peace officer academies, federal law enforcement training centers. I eventually got my bachelor's in criminal justice. Okay, so this is how I know all this. I've been through the system, and as a juvenile and somebody that was bad and didn't want to follow the rules, and then I realized that there's a reason why people or kids are disruptive. There's a reason why. Because intuitively, at some level, you realize that the system's wrong. Kids know better, just intuitively. They look at the system, and the system doesn't make sense to them. That's why. Because all you adults that are supposed to be leaders, you're all messed up. There's something wrong with you. You care more about profit and gain, You don't care about anything or anybody. You're out to get yours and yours only, and you and your fat criminal friends. And that's why they keep getting fatter, and then all the people going hungry, and starving, they endure more hardships as a result of all these big fatzos, that are just keep eating away at the system and at the core principles of the founding of our justice system, which was initially intended for good. You have these rights that are guaranteed to you, for good reason. Somebody got fed up and tired of oppression, and American history is not perfect, but the Constitution makes sense in many respects if people would abide by that. And when I say people, I really mean our public officials, starting with them, because they're the ones that set the precedent. And any time that you have ethical lapses within an agency or organization or government, it always begins at the top of the power structure. So I think I'll leave everyone with that. Comment, like, subscribe, message me, and I think I'm going to do another series on the juvenile justice system, but just the takeaway here is that the juvenile justice system is a civil court module, okay? Which is, the nomenclature is different. And that's how these professional liars, they call attorneys or whatever, are able to get away with this kind of fraud, is because the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense, they all went to the same schools. All right? They all speak the same rhetoric and lingo. They understand what they're doing. They're just trying to make a living like everybody else, except, at some point you have to look at yourselves and realize that how big of a fraud you are as a public official when your sole survival depends on victimizing children. It's sickening. So that's the takeaway here. Hope you guys enjoyed this video presentation. I'll keep you updated. Stay tuned, and until next time.